There's a common misconception that bipolar disorder is one of the two, sad and depressing, or happy and euphoric. The depressive stage is sad, the manic stage is happy. I'm personally not a believer in this idea. I do not adhere to the notion that mania and its destructive behaviors are fun. I like the way a subscriber of mine said it best on my video, Is Mania Fun?, where I go and take a deep dive into that question and give my thoughts and insights. My subscriber put it this way: mania is fun until it's not. I want to talk a little bit about the dark side of mania as far as the way it affects your thinking and your actions, how it affected my thinking, how it affected my actions. Because I'd be dishonest to say that mania is just one or the other, that it's either happy or that it's either frightening or whatever characteristic you really want to give it. There's so many aspects to mania. It's a roller coaster that never ends. It's constantly going up and down. And the intensity of psychosis just becomes worse and worse in many people who suffer from mania. I had psychosis as part of my mania, and for me, at the time, it was so terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. It was terrifying because I thought that I was alone in my battles. I thought that my battles were based on reality. All these delusions and hallucinations that culminated just had a cumulative effect on my being, on how I conducted myself. They were in control of my command center, these delusions, these hallucinations, and there was nothing fun about that for me. It was so bad, the feeling of loneliness, the feeling of doom, the feeling that everything is just going to get worse. That omnipotent feeling that you're the one who's going to stop all this, that you're the hero. That hero syndrome that comes along with it. Well, here's the deal. Bipolar mania can be so detrimental. It can be so profoundly negative on your life in terms of outcomes, events, changing your circumstances. It can be so consequential for the negative. Rarely, often, if ever, is there a time that mania produces the outcome of someone being in a better position after the fact than where they were before. That psychosis is somehow helpful in some regard. It's not. I was suicidal during my manic episode. That's the dark truth about my manic episode. I felt like nobody believed me. I felt like I was completely alone on my journey, that all this chaos was enveloping the world and I was the only one who could stop it, but nobody would believe me. Talk about delusion. That's the epitome of delusion. I literally considered ending my life because of the fact that nobody believed what I was saying, that certain people were Nazi agents, that sexual assault was taking place in my fraternity, neither of which were true. I adhered to a set of lies. I believed them. They were fact to me. What was so easily observable as oblivious to others was not so easily observed by myself. Because mania affects your insight, it affects your judgment, it disrupts your discipline. I was lost. I actually planned on drowning myself at Campus Pond. That fateful night into 2021, what could have been a fateful night, I apologize. Certainly a significant night in the time of my life. I was supposed to hold a press conference to talk about sexual assault taking place, to talk about the racist letter that was disseminated around campus, and to talk about how we were all going to come together in unity and overcome these obstacles. Thank God no such press conference ever happened. Thank God that the voices I talked to and reporters I spoke to were not actually real. Man, would that have been embarrassing. But I did post to the student class page of 2023. I posted that this was going to take place at Campus Pond and to be there. So everybody on my campus are, and not a single person in this group of the class of 2023. We're talking thousands, 5,000 followers to the page. Not one person liked my post, but a whole lot of people saw that post. And that's the embarrassing part about after the fact. But at the time, embarrassment wasn't a concern. My concern was that the world be saved and that I was the one to do it. That all these different problems that were taking place could only be stopped by yours truly. It was an absolutely absurd assertion to adhere to, but I adhered to it. The suicidality that I experienced was not limited to mania. It also happened to a great deal during my depressive episode, which lasted over 2 years, more than 3 times as long as my 6-month manic episode. When I first came out of mania, depression just overwhelmed me. I realized that the things I had believed weren't true. The things I had believed about my fraternity, the things I had believed about the world and the government and the Nazi agents that were after me, all of those things were falsehoods. And I know that I had vehemently expressed myself all over my social media platforms to the point of getting most of them banned. So everything I had said was out there and people were familiar with what I had said and done. I just couldn't believe what transpired. And in some of my earlier videos and my bipolar breakdown playlist, I talk about that in more detail if you want to take a look at that. But I was at true rock bottom in my life. I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, I was disappointed, regretful, fearful of my future. I had lost all my friends, I lost my education, I got expelled by my university, I got expelled by my frat, I lost my full-time job. I lost all my social connection and I became socially isolated, super socially isolated, to the point that for years at a time I was only going outside of my apartment to go to appointments. That's it. Nothing else. I wasn't visiting family. I wasn't keeping up with anybody, letting people out in the world know where I am, what I'm doing. I just disappeared off of the map entirely. What people don't realize is that during that time period, at many moments, I was extremely suicidal. I thought that there was no end in sight, that there was no hope for a better tomorrow. I just felt like my life was over, and that it wouldn't matter if I was gone. Thankfully, I didn't take any radical actions that resulted in me losing my life. I was persistent. I was barely hanging on at times to that quote which I had abided by since I was in high school by Calvin Coolidge. Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. I was barely hanging on to that, and it really pulled me through with the help of medications, with the help of therapy, with the help of my family, and with the tremendous belief in myself that was fostered through medication, through therapy, through positive self-talk, and because of my family. Because of all these things, I did not lose my life. I very well could have been part of that 20% of bipolar people statistic who commit suicide. 20% by suicide. So much more likely to occur in the bipolar population relative to the general population. So there were moments where the racing thoughts were too much for me to deal with. being so out of my element was too much to deal with. Having no contact with anybody, nobody to open up to, was too hard to deal with. And I considered ending it all. And it was, more than anything, a belief in God and fear of religious consequences that kept me alive. There were other things that opened up the avenues to help, like medication, therapy, but it was belief in God and of a higher power that truly kept me going over, above all, everything else. So I was suicidal while I was in mania. I was suicidal while I was depressed. So it's not difficult for me to avoid assigning both mania and depressive as simplistic terms such as sad or happy or energetic or lazy, or because oftentimes they mix. And that's what we call mixed episodes. And that's more pertinent to my story than I would say just regular episodes. I definitely had a mix of both. I had depression in my mania, and I had many manic periods within my depressive episode where I just suddenly became far more energetic than I was on a particular average day basis. But thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you stopping by the channel. Share with me your experience down below. Did you experience any suicidal thoughts or beliefs that crazy things were going on as I did? Feel free to share your experiences below if you feel comfortable. You don't have to. I appreciate everyone who watches. I appreciate everyone who shares, engages, because we're all in this together, and we have it within our power to boost our hopes and aspirations and regain control over our lives. We're not stuck at this square one of being forever rendered incapable of achieving our dreams because of a serious mental illness. Our ability to chase our dreams is still out there. We must keep pursuing that. We can never give up. And we have to remember, nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. President Calvin Coolidge. Thank you all for watching, everybody. Take care.